welcome to Out of the Box podcast with Dominic and Michaela. And we're here to review the new movie Serenity, directed and written by Stephen Knight. He's also known for writing Girl in the Spider's Web, and he's attached to write the upcoming World War Z 2.
So first we're going to start out with talking about the synopsis of the film. According to IMDb, the mysterious past of a fishing boat captain comes back to haunt him when his ex-wife tracks him down with a desperate plea for help, ensnaring his life in a new reality they may not be all that it seems. Does this actually describe the film?
I think it does, enough for it not to be a spoiler. But in our review, we were spoiling this film.
Yes, this is a spoiler review. We felt like the non-spoiler, we couldn't really explain what this movie was, so we're just going to go full on spoilers in this one. So if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want to be spoiled, this is your warning. Come back to it later after you've seen the film. So the story starts off, Matthew McConaughey is a boat captain, a character named Baker Dill. He lives on this Plymouth Island. He's obsessed with catching this certain fish. The reason wasn't explained why he wants to catch a certain fish, but we know that he's broke and he's desperate. He can't catch this fish. He's so desperate to get it.
Yeah, he's so desperate to get it, and he has a shipmate that he's good friends with, but he will do anything to get that fish. He will lose relationships. He will get money out of all these places because he's so desperate. Also hooks up with Diane Lane's character, Constance, for money. And throughout the beginning of the film, we see flashbacks of him and this son he either has or had. We don't know if this kid is dead or alive, but we see the flashback. We think maybe the fish has something to do with this son.
Yeah, I thought early on that the fish ended up killing his son, and now he wants to get revenge, but that's not how it turned out at all. His ex ends up showing up, who's played by Anne Hathaway, and turns out the kid is hers, and they had a kid together. Anne Hathaway is now remarried, and she is in an abusive relationship and offers Matthew McConaughey's character $10 million to kill her abusive husband.
And so she tries to plead with him, especially since she does have custody of the child, to help out both her and their kid. Now he gets put in this situation of, do I just go after this fish? Which they also mention in the beginning of the film, the fish does cost a lot of money. The people want him to get the fish to sell it. Or does he take her up on the offer and take the $10 million? Now, you might think, well, it's his son, so he shouldn't even be taking money to do something to help the son. But he doesn't have custody of the son, especially since his real name really isn't Baker Dill. It's John, and he went out to this Plymouth Island to escape from whatever it is he might have going on in the States.
Yeah, so that's what we're led to believe. But everything gets really, really odd on this island. Everybody in the town knows everything about Baker Dill's life, every single thing that happens, everybody he interacts with, and the conversation they had. Even Anne Hathaway, who said that she wanted to have that conversation in private about killing her husband, other people knew about it as well. So there's something odd going around here. Throughout this whole thing as well, this weird man in a suit is following Matthew McConaughey around. We have no idea what this guy's here to do. Eventually, he catches Matthew McConaughey in the middle of a storm and reveals he is in a game. The man in the suit is the rules. And the game is supposed to be about catching a fish. And the man in the suit ends up warning Baker, do not kill this man. Your purpose is to catch the fish.
And Baker Dill kept saying to the man, the rules have changed, and he is going to go through with the murder because he said, if that's what the creator wanted, that's what's going to happen. We find out that the rules guy might know about the rules, but he doesn't even know who created the game. And Matthew McConaughey even tells him, I know who created the game. It's a boy behind a computer screen, and tells him about everything having to do with the boy's life, when it's supposed to be surprising to this man, this fictional man that is, he's in a computer game and not actually living a life.
Yeah, and throughout this whole thing, he's also going back and forth as well about he doesn't know if he's crazy or not, or if it's real, if it's not real. But he does go ahead and try to kill the man. He does end up killing Jason Clarke, feeds him to the shark. he's dead. And then after that, at the same time, in real life, turns out the creator, which is Anne Hathaway and Matthew McConaughey's son, he ends up killing his stepfather in real life, gets sent to juvie, and his entire backstory is explained. And then at the end of the game, or at the end of the movie, when he actually gets out of juvie, he programs himself into the game so he can see his dad. And he has this scene where Matthew McConaughey walks by a payphone, it's ringing, picks it up, and it's his son on the phone. And they say, "There's a you and me somewhere." And then the son gets programmed into the game, and they run to the dock to go on the boat together to go fishing. And that's the end of the movie.
We left out a little bit of stuff just because it really didn't make sense into the film. Like the people in the town, it was just not making sense. But speaking of things not making sense, how did you like this story?
I think it was pretty terrible, the story. It was very overcomplicated, a lot of unnecessary storylines.
Yeah, the unnecessary storylines having to do with the hookups. There was a scene where Anne Hathaway's character comes and confronts Matthew McConaughey's character. They talk about a high school reunion neither of them attended. Matthew McConaughey's character named himself out of his favorite math teacher, when in fact it was the creator, the son, named the dad's character in the game after the son, the creator's own favorite math teacher. We thought it was weird that he not only made a video game based on what him and his father used to love doing, and named the character after his favorite math teacher, and have the father hook up with not only one of the ladies in town, but also his mother. Very weird.
Yeah, that was one of the weirdest things. This kid has some really dark thoughts going in his mind if he's creating this game and thought of his father having sex with multiple women that were not his mother. That's kind of odd. Now, one thing that we ended up not saying is that turns out in that backstory that we said that they end up explaining about the son, Matthew McConaughey's character in real life, his name is John, turns out he was sent to war in Iraq and he died in the war. And so now the son, that's why the son has an attachment, and that's why he creates him in the game.
And it also explains why Matthew McConaughey's character kept saying, lying in the sand, lying in the sand. So it kind of explains, like, maybe that's where he had died.
Yeah, one thing that bothered me within this movie is that I felt like there were a lot of unnecessary sex scenes. There was a lot of sex with Diane Lane and Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway. A lot of body close-ups, so it just didn't fit. You know, sometimes there's sex scenes that are in a movie, and it feels right, because it's part of the passion. This one, I feel like they were just thrown in just to be in there.
And throughout the movie, you could definitely see that twist come in of he's in a video game because of the camera angles, the verbiage they'd use. Like we said previously, the town's residents knew exactly what was going on, and the radio DJ would talk about, oh, go ahead and catch that fish today, or things like, you have a boat, we all know you have a boat, go out on that boat and catch that fish.
Yeah, and as we said, it was very, very weird how everybody in the town, so definitely a lot of hints. One thing, the twist was that he was in a video game. This happened 1 hour into the film. Michaela mentioned earlier about how the man in the suit kind of just came in and immediately revealed why he was there. It happened so soon in the movie that it was another 45 minutes that went by after we already knew the twist. And it just feels like everything that happened after the twist was kind of unnecessary and then just explaining a moot point. There were a lot of story threads in this film that were not closed. They didn't necessarily explain Djimon Hounsou's character and Matthew McConaughey's character and really the connection they have. They didn't really explain a lot of Constance, which is Diane Lane's character, and then her son ends up showing up, and they don't explain why he's there either. There's a bar, and there's the bartender and the owner of the bar. They don't explain anything to do with him. There's some drunk guy in the bar who's in there for one scene and doesn't show up again. They don't explain why anything happens in this film.
The only thing that I could understand with not explaining it is because it is technically a video game. So there's a lot of video games out there that characters get introduced but have nothing to do with the storyline. They're just there to give dialogue and just help the main character drive forward and just keep doing what he needs to do. So in that sense, I do kind of defend the writing, because technically in most video games, there's a lot of characters that really just don't have anything to do with the storyline. They're just there to give you motivation to move forward, or little hints here and there to just drive them to, in this case, catch that fish.
But this is a film, and you're telling me your top billing stars in the film aren't going to have anything to do. Academy Award nominee Diane Lane, Djimon Hounsou, Jason Clarke, these are big Hollywood stars. You're not going to give them anything to do?
Yeah, they could have used any other person to play Diane Lane's character, and it probably would have gone down the same way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I feel like Diane Lane's character had little nothing to do outside of her sex scenes, and it was definitely a shame that her talents were subjected to such a meaningless role in this film. And some of the other, we mentioned Djimon Hounsou, he probably had the best performance in this film. Didn't really have a lot to do, but with what he did, he was actually really, really good. Matthew McConaughey, when he was playing Baker Dill, definitely tried his best. Unfortunately, the story just falls apart. He tries to give dramatic performances, but they do come off silly just due to some poor writing.
Anne Hathaway's character, I mean, her portraying that character, Karen, you could tell that she tried her best to just work with the character and work with the writing, but it just fell apart, just like Matthew McConaughey's character. She does become the damsel in distress in the situation, and I think that is what's wrong with Hollywood. Not only this movie, it's what's wrong with Hollywood, because they put a woman in a role and they just say, oh, she's just going to be the damsel in distress. She's just going to be this sexual object, just like they did with Diane Lane. The two women, the main women in this movie, are just this character that they write as, oh, it's just a quote-unquote woman that's a sex object / damsel in distress.
Now, I don't want to go out on a tangent, but I'm going to use your logic and play devil's advocate, because you just said earlier about the video game story and how characters are able to be there and not really having a major key point in the storyline, but to push the movie forward. If you're talking from this point as well, video games, damsels in distress, and since this was made by a 13-year-old kid, they're going to have the women be damsels in distress. What do you think about that?
But if he's putting his mother in there, why is it that the kid is putting his mom as the sex object? Maybe because he sees it in the household? But, I mean, come on. Make your mom a little stronger. And in that case, let the mom kill the stepdad in the story in the video game, then, not his dad that's dead.
That actually would have been a great twist. One of the things that I thought would have been cool in this film, instead of going to, oh, this is a video game movie, it's not real, have it be real and have it be about humanity. And if you kill or not to kill, how far would you go for your family? How far would you go for money? So will Matthew McConaughey actually go through it and kill this man to help his son and help his ex-wife? And how far will Anne Hathaway go to make sure that her son is safe? That would have been a much more interesting premise and more character-based than this movie ended up being. It's just too fantastical, too high concept. It just fell flat.
Yeah, there was no connection to any of these characters. And one of the last characters was Reed Miller, which we said was the Rules, played by Jeremy Strong. It was a very odd character from the start. We had no idea what he was there for. Then when he introduced himself, he kind of was a spill the beans type of person. Like, oh, I'm not going to say anything, but here is everything laid out just an hour into the film.
Yeah, he was really only in it for 2 major scenes, and those 2 scenes were to explain what's happening next in the film. That's it.
The major twist, he was the only one to reveal that, and it was just very odd that he was in that as well.
So really, overall, does this film work?
I mean, I think it had glimpses of potential. The twist could have turned in something else. Maybe Matthew McConaughey's character could have been a drunk or on some substances to make him believe that he is in a video game, he's actually still in real life, and could have been debating killing this guy, kills the guy, and then he has real life consequences because he really does believe that he's in a video game. That probably would have been a better storyline than being an actual video game.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a lot of different routes. We both mentioned probably a twist that would end up being better than what was shown. Really, there was just too much going on in this film for it to work, and really when the twist does happen, we gave an eye roll. For me, after the point where they showed the twist, everything else kind of became a joke, became laughable, because the first half of the movie was serious, this drama. The second half, you're like, wait, this completely took a left turn, and it doesn't match up. It was just completely off the rails from that point.
It was just saying, oh, it pretty much ended here. Everything else is going to happen what we said is going to happen. We're going to kill, this guy's going to die. And it just kept on dragging on from there. So it was a very eye roll, head shaking to the end.
So now it's time for our rating. Those of you who didn't listen to our first review of Glass last week, if you haven't already, definitely go check that out. We have 4 different tiers for our rating system. We'll run through them real quick. One is run to the theater now, meaning that it's great and you must see it ASAP. Our second one is see it before it leaves theaters, so you don't have to run to go see it opening weekend, but definitely make sure that you check it out before it leaves theaters.
Then our last 2 is wait for streaming. It might not be worth the extra money to see it in the theater for each person in your family or whatnot, but it might be good to either rent just a disc or on a streaming service. And the last one is skip it. It's forgettable and you shouldn't waste your time. I'm sure you could guess what ours is.
Yeah, it's definitely a skip it. It's definitely forgettable. It took a swing, but it didn't hit, and it's definitely forgettable.
Yeah, sometimes Dominic and I have different thoughts on the movies on where our rating system lands, but I'd have to agree we both just went with skip it.
Yeah, so that is our review of Serenity, the new Matthew McConaughey and Hathaway film. If you want to see more from us, definitely go on our SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/outoftheboxpod. We're also on Twitter @outoftheboxpod and Instagram as well, same thing, outoftheboxpod.
And our website, outoftheboxpod.wix, W-I-X, site, site.com/blog. And on the site, we have a bunch of blogs and writings on movie news that might have not touched base on in our podcast, but it is throughout the week that we post those either movie trailers or big stories that have dropped throughout the week.
So definitely make sure to check out this Sunday and every Sunday for our main show, the Out of the Box podcast with Michaela and Dominic. Us signing off. Thank you for checking out our review of Serenity. Have a great week in the cinemas.